Hello everybody, welcome to the final poetry set of this Saturday night of our 10th Winter Warmer Festival. You're very welcome. Tonight, a very exciting lineup with Mac Conghail, Joelle Taylor and Moyra Donaldson. I'm going to go straight into it and introduce Mac Conghail, who will be joining us tonight in person. His first poetry collection, Ceol Baile, won the Michael Hartnett Poetry Award in 2014. Since then, he's featured in experimental film and edited a collection of 50 essays in Meascra on air. Recently, his son Naoise has put music to his poems from Spásas, a collection of Marx's published in 2021 by Coiscéim. So if you now give a warm welcome please to Marcus.
Hello, it's great, thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the pronunciation of my name. I'm going to read, I write poems in Irish for anybody who doesn't know, and I don't know how to translate them, and maybe I don't want to as well, but I'll give some kind of explanations as much as I can to give you an idea of what's going on. But regarding my surname and pronunciation, I was here before at the Winter Warmer, whenever that was, Paul, and Paul asked me for a biog, and you always feel weird writing a biog. What lies am I going to tell people about myself today? So anyway, something came into my head and I just sent it to Paul and he used it as a biog, but I kind of, what's the word, added to it since, and it's in my new book, Spásas. So this is kind of about the pronunciation of my name, which you did very well, thank you. Because a lot of people don't. So it's like fuck you, like it's one of those kind of poems. Sorry in advance. So it's called Níl Agam Ach, which is this is all I have. Ma'anam Mahlina bin Sharati Iskrita Micharta Gachdina. So here goes. Marcus, Sukram, Ni Markata Aun, Gurige is Gurod Hu, Ni Ga e Wailu la A and Ot and U, Ni Enig Marco na Marius na Martin and Hush, is Ke Gadukti Markashin or Tra, Tam Kina Rohandoshin and Ish. And then it's Mac Conghail, Ni Mac Conghail na O Conghaila, Ni Mac Conghail ta Aun na, funnily enough, Mac Conghail without a space between the M and the C. There's a space between the Mac and the rest, so you can have a rest before you carry on. Agus ní Mac Conghail le taun. Bíchas gur córa fada agam le dinid and slina seo. Agus cé gur cheistig sí mé fui me H. Agus gur riafrias a cináit as a dánig an fada an A. Chrichnig ar góra gus silver shave. Agus cávis nach an slina cén a bhí gling a rain sheer amach before all the unpleasantries. But I digress. And remember to head for the last syllable for your emphasis. So if you said Mac Conghail, I'd settle for that, making the tubular diphthong bells ring individually tight. Yeah, Mac Conghail, an fear a churachtu de grim and triel, an fear a hatalo hurt mar a hataloing garagadil. Mac Conghail, a skrivach don rit that would make you feel for the first time, for the last time, and all the times in between. And before you ask what that is in English, Kesht Farir Uhurach Ganariadum, my colonial name is McGonagall, Gurmabiv. Thank you. I'm just going to turn my clock on belatedly. It's when you're putting a set list together, you never know what you're going to do. So one poem kind of sparks off another, and maybe that decides what your set list is. So my next piece is, actually maybe I'll read two pieces in a row, yeah. My next piece is called Éise, which I suppose is a way that you might pronounce Éirde, the name of this country, if you were particularly mujahideen-like in the pronunciation of the slender R. It ends up sounding like a Z, like Moise instead of Moira. I'm a pedant, sorry. So this is called Éise, and I suppose I wrote it, I suppose, because the way time passes and society in Ireland has passed, and there was a grubby old club in Dublin that I used to drink in, full of grubby old people like me, and now they have LADTA, sorry, that's the Irish tradition, LGBT events now, so I suppose time changes and things get better. So this is called Aza, and it's in memory of Danny Sheehy from Cork. I wrote it the day he was buried. A nocht is to a hordav in Mílte Aglische, time a glob on chunnerhe, áterev the chéad date a gutsa agus ag Moyra. Ihe ella DTA a tarbon a nocht. Da mech Paddy Malone sitte in a chuine kush kanturach dertach sé umbasht. And kind of along the same lines in a way, I'm learning to say shead and iad, the plural pronoun, isn't that the right thing to say? Instead of e and she and a and may. And it's difficult for my trained mouth of many years to put that into my brain, but I'm learning to do it. So I suppose this poem is about that. It's about giving respect, I suppose. It's called Ulrig, which means both. What does it mean? It means prolific. No, I don't have the English. May there be more of you there is what it means, and it also means plural. Dere le denarhach na dialachtige, leis an idir inskene, leis an ní chléine réamh áirithe, le calca na cinál jailte, ní rinne den díis, nó ach rian nav réanárthe atá a dríal, an tríú parsa ulrathe, sealbhathe co. Ní tauntathe go trislach, ag lúbíní an héit idir lúbíní atáid, ach les mod de heoranacha alpha agus omega abid na habitere, taka in inve, ta ulra on omos dlitte. Apparently there was a plural that used to be used for priests and things in Ireland, in Irish. I didn't know that. I didn't know many priests, but they'd be Sheads and Eads, apparently. So that's ulra on omos. So what will I do now? I'll do a poem. I suppose, there are doorkeepers and bouncers everywhere in life, keeping people out of situations and protecting their turf, I suppose. The same goes for language stuff as well, and it's changed now, but there used to be a way that people would look down on people who weren't able to speak English, or Irish in this case, even though they had something to say. So it's kind of trying to give that some highlighting. And it's written badly, if that's the term, or it's written grammatically incorrect and without any deference to what would be considered good. And it's called Ea. Sorry, it's not. It's called Leia. I missed that L. Uscail me bail agus abershid níl me cart. Uscail me bail agus abershid ruddy mar firinchkinach. Uscail me bail agus abershid níl cad ní abrandine é seo. Uscail me bail agus abershid tashid farin amar fad. Abershid tamatanga druch. Ach shin muz. Tantanga shin muz. Mo fukli. Uscail me bail agus dún me bail an sin, fan me. Dún me clúsa, ní tucan na far a ríis. Uscail me bail, mar tá me a tastáil rá rudí. Is siad canasóri, ach tá me ag ire me bail a uscail. Níl támag an be sean, níl me ábalta be einse caite. Tá siad mo fucli, tá siad mo swainte, tá siad a nish. Thanks for listening and not throwing things at me. We were talking earlier on, actually, we were eating a bit of food earlier on, and some people were talking about the whole what is Dian Glasoil, whatever that is, COVID thing, when we're all locked in and blah, blah, blah. So I wasn't going to read this, but because of the conversation, I decided to read this. This was my 5-kilometre route during that time. And it was, I'm living in Connemara now, so I'm not used to hearing the cuckoo. You don't hear the cuckoo in Dublin, really, I don't think. But in Connemara you hear the cuckoo, and each townland is in competition with each other townland to figure out which one heard the cuckoo first. I'm serious. People have written songs and stuff about that. But actually, the first time I heard the cuckoo, I fell in love with it. I thought that's amazing and everything. And then I moved house from where I was to another place, and there was a fucking cuckoo just outside the door, and the bastard didn't stop all night. So, subsequent to this poem, I have changed my mind about cuckoos. But let's imagine for a second that they're okay. Okay? Hoo, hoo, hoo. Malin min na cuich amach me, amach las mo, in áit isteach lastig, áit mím cuachta, is siomra fehev yere an dawen. Shúlum, shúlum, tic-tac an amma, click-clack na mróg, milsich tinavona im hrón. Cat, 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 cat. An dá chat in a leabhar stop leach na fhuinóige, iad a fire, ach gan éon áard a chuir umsa. Drid, 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 Londov, céir seach. Pisún dúr, éalathe ón a frisún, rómhúr den dúthaigh seo. Austrig, Austrig, is smachil tanga banim do, is mailam gair. Céim, Coiscéim, trocht cuise rocht cuise, dordán na dorbaní gaoithe, a trawa omarí críche, idir garda, a buint an éir. Gary, 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 gan rudder be, a fásanta, ach I bio leis a fás mar sin hain, get a rí, an fás ra suas go baragach clí, áit bhfuil crotal in a scra a ráiste agus bui. Cloch, carig cloch, cloch, carig cloch, códú cliche déanta na garantí, gach clí in a foul charta ó hana riamhara gan léamh. Cloch, carig cloch, cloch, carig cloch, gaur, a surfáil a lech gan stró, go dána a feire idir an dá húilearm, in chrack sé. Den a héamh a ghaur chara, a airca crúp a sír, iad bert cangilte is a rubbal chrach. Corán galí, gan réal sa spéir, cloutí corcra, lia corcra, lia. An tír hawl, tre fink hinne, Fuinin na gréine, a bhuinógan an leanta trasna an chuin. Ale is ever, ever is ale, na hailte a bain seara asta hain, siar amach san Atlantach. Dul fuin na gréine, an tairi amach ir na spéire, lasracha na réamh loide a dul an éag, na hiláin, a gimmert fullach bíg. Drish, drish, drishacha, tick, tack, click, clack, ever agus ale. Cacan na bioga agus múran an anmhathe. Leanan an chuach a gléach, nadidir can a hef. Cá bhfuil a chuachín. Bóthar an rí, búilte lum dere, cart an gharda patrol. Seo clí tóran mo hiúlóide, in aimsir seo na cóvide. Film hú na cúiche, a nadig im chlúis. Mí nádúr nádúr ratha díbartha. Siúlum an suimhnis a bhaile liom, go tarman na lepan. So imagine bass and drums behind this for a second. I'm going to read 3 poems in a row, and they're, I suppose, all on the Ceol Baile. They're all on the theme of leaving and separation in different kind of ways. Tocht, níl drumcha na lapan, déanta de ra, má la. Is níl lár na lapan, sitte sa lár go bailach. Sheller, Glachter, is Gaelter Tallav, Gachra Shao, Scoil Raman na Baha, an Marlene Vaughan. Fágan si. Sílín on Gahar, is o Gahar Griavain a Ceol. Our Sian Trí Lúbra a Poite, ag a haint na híhiréir, an Nóbus go Gaileh. Níl díise bheith céhar an tros, ach an waith fai séir an aisce. Tug an sánas de chahar a bháin, tre húling te gahar eile, is fágan as dar chuirdig bord. Atá ag titim. Tá gach solas darag, gach ile cheann, tá gach solas darag a tuaid síne amadúin, tá gach éin bhréan traum sa tóir an gceann atá titim rive, tríd an Meascra, tá an trocht an a chach, ro hapig I hiocig an glas, ro hapig don sláán sínta seo a bheith an stad. Gur magah? So horses. I don't really know much about horses, but there's a lot of horses in Connemara. And they're kind of idle looking, a lot of them. I don't know what they're there for, to be honest. They're not working horses. I think they're shown and people look at them and admire them, I think. Sorry, I might be wrong here, but this is what I'm saying. So there's a lot of horses, and I remember years ago actually, you know the way you store stuff in your head or notes in your head, and I remember hearing there was a news item on Radio Nagantic at the time about Connemara ponies and blah blah blah, and there's like rules and regulations and committees and stuff, and if you're this too high or too low or whatever, if you're not right, you're not let in, so you're not an official Connemara pony. And I felt really sad for all the horses that weren't going to be let in to this exclusive club, and I think it is an exclusive club. But so that stayed in my head. But I'm now actually living in the place that there's a lot of Connemara ponies hanging around, selling drugs or whatever it is they do. So kind of I imagined this Connemara pony talking to a fella who happened to turn up and pat him and maybe had a carrot in his pocket. So this is basically the pony speaking. Paidir Chapel it's called. Ulisad a chasim agoni vehem chapelin Connemara. A goil gishoni an glachan. Nu tourists a togal me fictur is me brana wem har clee gardia kint a litter maline. A heistob Meascra o wing de Bruadar be tuarim vat in an lean at har an gemissi. Nach chapelin Connemara me. Luide nu moide lav nu ho vi me pishin biogro viog. Nu pishin biogro vur. Agus an nuasar sin ní raibh maithar ná ma hanahar ná ma hinhanahar den fór pure. Ach tá ag an lá nach bhfuil an ceartaigh na daine. Is capelín mé? Is as Connemara mé? Bhí is an gur rud a cinnte de fóg agat, ní bhuailech an down na Mac na daraga. Brean an Ísling a deirtú. Agus ó Andalusia an Armada. Agus brean eile fós an na Harabs. Éiste bhach. Tá ma bhaintear an seo ó aimsin an tána. Agus ó sa caintear an táin a táid, ní tarabh na rá Harab faoi dear an reaction goléir ach capelín, ma rá le hain. Capelín as Connemara a chaclí. Is lean an tachran agus na scéalte is ní hána sé bac riamh. Fan go nerde me leat. Hetrig capelín atá an a lán bhail chlúis is dúirt fécha chara. Ná bí díonar tain. Ní ortsa an locht nar tugach na pápéirgait. Ní arna tú a bhfuil de chorp a leanacht. Tá sé cosúla sé bar maham a dúirt sé. nó an Waterford lá. Tá European designation acab. Well, tá brand le cosint ainge. Is ma hookter an bheithe stig ritse is stud le héid, bain for an bound an enterprise galéir, agus an sin chamechmid, free for all. Bar maham, blah. Is capelín é sin a hílan bhfuil chuilehort a rólas aige faoi chuilehort. Ach níl tada a rólas aige faoi hada. Níd an fláta an capel a dúirt mé leis. Ach a ríist a rais, an gcuoinín tú ar scéal an Tesco burger. All right, ach rí. Búla mé ráile. Tá claochaí go leor le catha fósam, agus fecem túras bus a teachtain air. Gur maithagah. Are we okay for time? Are we okay for time? Over or another one? One more? Is that okay? Oh yeah, I'll sing a song. I'll sing a song. So this is also in the book, and it came out. Did it come out as a poem or a song? I can't remember. Maybe it came out as a song, but yeah, this is called Our Andochish. And I was in the Isle of Man one time, and I kind of imagined like they used to speak Irish there, and yeah, I was kind of imagining Ireland be the Isle of Man or something. And anyway, it's a song of hope, yeah. And anybody who's interested, there's a translation into Manx Irish on the other side of the page. It looks really weird because they use different orthography, isn't that the word? They used, anyway, but it's Irish. Anyway. Suli Rude le Harnodi Kashir no Tante le Spásas Coran Gali Gach Ribefed Oidu Gach Dor Ruchte Rail te rail le Kodu Skrib Flaunishni is nil derde dente fos 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 sulle mirago sulle tier mar of running a show the sergo manning nile in a spade nile port eden nil tacht der gala naar hun wie nede is nil derde dente fos is nil derde dente fos is nil derde dente fos is nil derde roite fos. Gurmil Mahagav, agus Gurmil Mahagav. Thank you.
Marcus McNeil. Agus someone the quid over foil I take an Erlina.
On Schopenhauer.
On shot.
Yeah, on Schopenhauer gas ID, yeah.
Oh, on shot. Glare data E.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's bookshop. Wait a second. Was I the last person to get that? Wouldn't be the first time. So next up, I'm going to introduce our next poet who will be joining us online. I believe it is gone 3:30 in the morning now, where she is. So fair play. So Joelle Taylor is our next reader. Joelle Taylor, so much for pronunciation. Joelle Taylor is our next reader. Cunto and Othered Poems, Joelle's most recent of 4 collections, won the 2021 T.S. Eliot Prize. It was the subject of Radio 4's arts documentary Butch, and it has been awarded and acknowledged by a list of esteemed publishers. Joelle is currently completing her memoirs, for publication in 2024, as well as a novel of interconnecting stories entitled The Night Alphabet. So would you now please welcome Joelle Taylor.
I can see myself projected on the side of the hall. That's incredible. How is everyone? You good? Eerie silence. Okay, so I'm, as you can see, I don't know how well you can see, I'm sitting in a hotel room in Koh Samui, Thailand, where I've kind of glamorously run away from everything just to kind of do edits on The Night Alphabet. The novel is actually finished now and it's coming out in 2024. So I'm going to be reading from Canto and other poems. And before we begin, Canto, which causes much hilarity in the Western world, isn't actually, it's a real word, believe it or not. Canto means to recount or tell a personal story, past, singular, historic. And it's a kind of really rare word, a dialect word in Italian. And I have to confess that I didn't know it was a word until I called the book Canto, because they're essentially cantos written about being a butch, a masculine dyke, a kind of wrong-walking woman. So before I begin, I just want to fill you in what it was like. I'm 55 years old, and as we assume, things have got a lot easier coming out as gay throughout the world, or whatever identity you're coming out as. But back when I came out, I think the most important part of the sentence "come out" was out, the word out, because that was the kind of choices that we had to make. I had to choose between my family or my authenticity, if you like. And that was the experience of a lot of gay people during that period in time who didn't live in the cities, who lived outside the cities. And there was a period I can only describe as exile, really, because you're at school and then suddenly this thing happens and you realize that you're different. And so you're exiled from your school friends, and that's people you've known possibly all your life. You're exiled from your family. You're exiled from your local community, and eventually you're exiled even from your own body. And then there was this period in the late 80s, I don't know if you recall, when I think of it as the great migration of the gays, like great big geese. All the gays and the lesbians started to flock toward the cities, because in times of great oppression and repression, we have each other. But as well as growing up feeling exiled, I've grown up, this is a very common feeling, I think, particularly with lesbians. I grew up feeling ugly. So not belonging, exiled, ugly. And during this period of the migration, we were all kind of honing in on these spaces in which we were welcome, these safe spaces. You know, we use that word quite a lot, safe space, without really thinking about what it meant. What it meant for me is that I stood on the outside of the door, and on the outside, I was like exiled. And then on the inside, belonging. On the outside, ugly. And the inside, handsome. So this book is it's part memoir. It's the true story of the women, the extraordinary butch women I grew up with during the 80s and 90s in London. It's about the whole counterculture. It's about all the things we did, the squatting, the political actions, but mainly it's about 4 of my friends. It's a book of grief and love. It's about how we love and how we die. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read through. I won't wait for applause or anything, because it's just going to be awkward. So I'm going to talk at you until it's time to stop talking. Scene 1. Exterior, night. A main road in London. LX1. Street lamps watch a woman pass and text each other. Oh gosh, I'm completely lost. Start again. This is what happens when you get up at 3:30 in the morning to do something. Please forgive me. Here are we. I'm going to have to getting rid of the document on my computer. We're going to stick with the old-fashioned book. Scene 1. Exterior, night. A main road in London. LX1. Street lamps watch a woman pass and text each other. FX1. The sound of a door opening into a chest cavity. A lone woman walks briskly, head down, holding invisible bouquets. Ahead of her is a hunched building with its hands in its pockets, bracketed by gossiping fairy lights. LX2. A neon sign flashes, its pink dilate. Maryville, the sign says. The woman pushes open the door and enters her own body. At the bar, she orders a drink, and when it arrives, it is her breath. Music is playing. It's the sound of someone being listened to. She notices that she's sitting at every table. When the woman asks her to dance, the hands of Shropshire, the street she grew up on, an adjacent town, her parents and grandparents, the kid who waited for her after school. The song ends, the world opens, Venus rises. Thank you. Go straight in. Psalm is a kind of praise poem. I mean, as you know, praise poems originated really in west of Africa and are a way of recording. I think of them, certainly in terms of canto, as a way of elevating the ordinary. So this is Psalm. O Maryville, song of loose shirt, you button down boy, you thick rod of irony. O Maryville, you sawn off miniskirt, you tights torn into choir. O Maryville, O swagger, O keychain and denim. I am plural. O Maryville. We dress as our greatest fears, we dress as ourselves. O Maryville, the etymology of dyke, so many holes to fill. I knew your mother, saw them, lower her body into her body, saw how she became cenotaph. The neighborhood children left flowers at old Maryville. I remember your sister, how antelope she was, how she froze when she heard the first roar, how she fell into the O of the roar. O Maryville, the antelopes are eating the antelopes. Oh my Maryville, forgive us their trespasses. O Maryville, let us walk alone at night and let the night not follow us. Let us drink too much and awaken in each other's mouths. Let us be ugly, let us unwashed, let us language. Our mouths are filled with men lying, dancing. Let us pass the halved smoke cigarette. Let us fatten. Let us leave our faces on the back seats of night buses. Let someone take a photograph, not of us, but because of us. Let our limbs grow wild, our hair retreat, our hormonal seize. Let our breasts, let them. Let us inherit each other's teeth. O Maryville, keep us alive this death. Keep us from prayer. Deliver us from ego. For thine are the body, the birthing and the burning forever and ever. Are you a man? I should have actually said that so tired I am. It's like jet lag as well. So the book begins when a series of vitrines, which are like glass display cases in museums, begin appearing all across London and outside of all the old spaces that we used to hang out. These are kind of haunted, sacred spaces to us. I'm sure you're aware of the rising tide of homophobia and transphobia worldwide. And I wanted to dedicate this reading to Club Q in Colorado Springs, who, as we know, were attacked a few days ago in a mass homophobic attack. But you probably also don't know about Oslo, the mass shooting in Oslo, because it wasn't really reported, again, of a Pride event, 2 separate Pride shootings in Finland, another shooting in Slovakia, and of course that the Poland is now pretty much 3/4 to completely an LGBT-free zone, and Chechnya. So with all these in mind, I want to introduce you to one of the vitrines, and the vitrine, we've already been inside it because I'm tired. This vitrine is a snow globe, and inside it is an entire bar called the Maryville, and we've just kind of gone inside there. And if you go inside the Maryville, you have 4 women, these 4 butchers who stand together and navigate the night, take care of all the other women in the spaces. Crucially, keep it a safe space, keep it safe from themselves and safe from outside threat. And I'm going to introduce you to a couple of them. First, it's called Valentine. These are all real people who've now died, friends of mine. Valentine is what's called a stud, which is a black butch, and she was also a leather dyke as well, did a lot of squatting, and was one of the riders in the Black Widows, which is a big dyke gang. It's like a porn film, isn't it? I swear all of this is real. It's big dyke leather dyke gang. This is Valentine. Born, right body, wrong day. Valentine flicks her lighter in the corner of the club, and white women flutter. Tonight, she has dressed as the inside of a mouth, a hand-sewn suit excised from a cured night sky black. Leather has its own skincare routine. It listens to its mother. I've heard it said, some girls give birth to themselves on the backs of motorbikes. Invent the wind, let the road uncurl from between their thighs, the Lemniscate motorway, something British and unbidden. I know why we're drawn to the corners. It's where the road cannot reach us. Every part of a woman is a weapon if you know how to hold her, Valentine says. The corner flicks a morse, and in the dark, white hearts beat like moths against a headlight. Thank you. Angel, what's called a boy, you spell it B-O-I, and that's a young butch. And Angel was very, very butch. She's very close to the source of trauma, shall we say. And was very violent and aggressive, absolutely terrifying. And I adored her, and she was very young, Angel. When Angel looks in the mirror, it looks away first. Star fist, open jaw, how the shine becomes you, clean friend, taller than yesterday, spine and unraveling plots you, odd insistence. My king of the blue tattoo, eyebrow pinned Prince Butterfly. When you walked in the room, it became you. How you brought the silence in with you. How you brought the night to its knees, back there where the quiet ones go, and now the night won't stop texting. How many times have we walked home, you and I, only to find home walking softly behind us? I have seen you leap over language to push a man back inside himself, throw pint glasses like seeds, speak to every woman as though she were your mother. I have seen your fists sob. At the center of every boy, is a bare room, and inside a swinging light bulb, a wire, thin girl dances, stays with you, even when you look away. Angels don't fall from heaven. They leave at closing time. Unscrew their fucks in the backs of black cabs, abandon their bodies beneath a girl, beneath a duvet, beneath the wet, dilated night, on fire. Thank you. I'm going to do I'm just going to do one more. It's so kind. This is really weird having all this applause in this strange little hotel room. With all the mosquitoes, it's like very itchy. So this, which brings me on to the last poem I'm going to read. This is called Summer All Night Long. And it relates to a night in a club. If any of you have been to a club called the Royal Vauxhall Tavern, which is in Vauxhall in London, it's very old, very famous gay bar for both lesbians and gays and trans people, everything in between. And one night there, I wanted to capture in one of the vitrines, if you can imagine bottling the best night of your life. It's kind of a snapshot of what it was like. It was very, very hot. It was about, I guess, about 80 degrees, much hotter inside the club. Because we were young, we were all wearing leather and rubber and things like that was going to make things easy. This is it. This is about love between friends. Boys, soft-skinned and shaven, shelter from the sun in the shadows cast by elder butches, kick balls and catch each other, sketch out a conus with billiards and recreate the moment of conception. There are only so many holes a boy can fall down. But here she is again, and maybe the film reel jumps a little here, by which I mean heart, and when I say heart, what I mean is idea. Boys are newly planted as she passes. There's a reason storms are named after women feel their roots reach out to one another, bend into her, yes, and one boy, her tongue a diving board, launches into her fathom. Nothing as concrete as a backslap, nothing as younger slap palms, but still, the bar knows what it knows, that a tongue is a bed, and this boy understands how to make it origami the sheets into something wild and confident. A swan or the Hadron Collider. And they will practice their careful all night. Morning will leave by the back door. Never call. But the boy dreams, thinks, maybe this time something will be born. Thinks, if I had a baby, I would call it Flint. The music is big, bold, takes up the whole of the dance floor, is its own god. Light has poor impulse control, throws herself at the feet of willow boys, while Summer waits by the open door, fans herself as boys beg. Water reminds us that boys are almost all water in the act of becoming. All the boys swept out of the bar on flash tides of their own belonging. The music is on its knees, heavy breathing across some girl, the weight of unison almost too much to bear, but the track is bullied back by another, and as the song climbs to its feet, we throw our hands in the air, and when they land, they are someone else's. Two truths can exist in the same space. They lean at opposite ends of the bar, turned away from one another, watching the other's reflection in her pint. Her architecture her present, her unyielding. And we are caught in the magnetic space between these. We are caught in the space between magnetic poles, these old enemies, shouldering the roof, the whole damn sky. If one moves, the other dies. These stones in the river, these deciders of the tide. Might be Tuesday, Thursday, doesn't matter. Maryville is waiting. A woman walks into a bar and nothing happens. Her drink arrives on time and is the taste of a drink. Her friends materialize around her. The bar boy asks if she's going on to the club. And for a moment, it's okay. Everyone in the bar is everyone she knows. When the night ends, it doesn't. Thanks very much. Hope that was a big one. It was a wonderful, wonderful event.
Thank you so much, Joelle Taylor. That was just so enjoyable. It was absolutely gorgeous. Thank you again. We hope that you can stay around for another little bit so we can have an opportunity to have a brief Q&A at the end of the event. So bear with us. So I'm going to announce our final reader for tonight, Moyra Donaldson, who will be joining us here in the room. So Moyra is a collaborative poet and creative writing facilitator with 9 collections of poetry. She received a Major Artist Award from the Arts Council of Northern Ireland in 2019. Her latest collection, Bone House, published by Dora Press in 2021. Bone House is actually available here tonight, as well as another collection of Moyra's called Carnivorous. So if you'll now please welcome Moyra Donaldson.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you also for all the die-hard poetry listeners who are still here. Okay, I'm going to start off with this poem, a dream poem that came from a dream shortly after my mother died. It's a poem called Nest. I wake beneath a chestnut tree, back against bark, legs stretched out through grass. Long-fingered leaves drip light and shade haphazardly. The air is warm. In front of me, a lake lies like a mirror, and I break its surface, wash my face in its salty, ice-cold water. My horse is waiting, shaded and patient. His skin is comfort, his breath green, as he carries me on his back to the flat stone altar at the forest's heart. Being dead, I lay myself down on it thankfully, and the black bird comes, lifts me to her round, high nest. Inside the egg, I am a cell, dividing and dividing. First heartbeat, shell-filtered light warm on my lidless eyes, until time comes and the shell cracks. My horse is waiting, bright and patient. His skin is sunlight and his breath air. Amongst the moss, his bones are white and dry. In my beak, I lift his great rib hull, his long leg bones, the instrument of his skull. And in the highest branches of the tallest tree, in wind-tossed waves of leaves, I build my horse's nest, my ship of bones. I love that kind of idea of transmogrification and changes and all the things that we are throughout life, I suppose. So I'm going to read two poems on that kind of theme. The first one is another bird poem. It's Black Dream Bird. It was yesterday that I was a crow, with horsehair in my beak and my nest half built and my black feathers shining through the early mist of belonging to the world, of knowing how to balance on the air of the world, and my shadow the same colour as myself. Even when the farmer tied my body lifeless to the wire in warning and my bones poked out, still I flapped in the wind and raised my wings, my beak hinged open to the call of air. And this one, I was asked to contribute to an anthology of an Ovid anthology, and this poem is called A Queer Few Things. Over a lifetime, the gods make many things of you. One terrible winter, I was an iris. Oh, do not assume that bulbs remember spring and flowering. I've sat down at a table laid with the corpse of my child and been expected to eat. And I have soared, of course, seen how the world has spread wide for those who fly. I have killed with beak and talons to fill the little gaping throats. I have asked for the chariot's reins and set my whole world blazing. I have been fox and snake and bear. I have been stone and waterfall. I have been loved too much and not enough. I have been split open by the first green shoot. I have been folded neat and safe inside my shell. I have been both grit and pearl. I have been the earth's gold veins, the aching rift between the continents. I have been a heart hunted through the darkening woods, and the heart pierced by arrows, chambers breached and flooded. I was the vanishing point too. If you were here earlier, Scott was talking about kind of writing about political things, and like him, I'm from the north, and I don't, I suppose, directly write about political things, but it creeps in, you know, it's part, as he was saying, it's part of who we are. So these next two poems are kind of around that. This poem is called We Were Speaking, and then the Bright Half Moon and Jupiter. A black volcanic bowl with one blue stream across and a jug that holds no water. Architect drawings are fading, and each morning now the house has rearranged itself. Through which window will the sun rise today? On what will it set? The word is written on the wall by a mysterious hand. See how it shines above your head as if it was the word of God, as if the word was out that you can hate as well as you can love, or better. Yes, word is out, word is on the street. Kneel down for it, do not blink. This next poem, in the north, there have been a number of people who are referred to as the disappeared, people who were killed and their bodies have never been found. And a number of years ago, there was a young girl called Lisa Dorian who disappeared, and her body has still not been found. She was about the same age as one of my daughters and lived in the same area as we lived in. And her mother, Patricia Dorian, died a few years ago without ever knowing where her daughter Lisa was. So this poem is an elegy for Patricia Dorian. To have your daughter taken and not know where to find her, not even the bones of her body that you carried in your body, the bones that belong to you, her sweet baby bones. There was searching in sea tides, boots of cars, shucks and ditches, in holes in the ground, in closed faces. Could the body of a girl be folded into an oil drum, sealed and dumped as if rubbish? The most appalling of places, and in your imagination, worse even, but not worse than not knowing. You wouldn't let them forget her. You begged for one man with a conscience. None were to be found. From posters in shops, on telegraph poles, newspaper articles, each new anniversary, year after ever, forever, your daughter still smiling at the gone world. This next poem is a kind of a plea, I suppose, for us to consider what we're doing to the world. It's called Return, and it starts off with a little epigraph from someone called Caspar Hauser, who was known as the wild child of Europe. He was a boy, a feral child who was living wild and then was brought into civilization. And he said, "Why are the horses so long without coming and let me suffer so much?" Like the viola d'amore, our heartstrings lie below the heartstrings of the horse, so that we harmonize through resonance. And there is truth that lives outside of time in vivid dream. Raskolnikov's little sorrel beast, the boy who kissed her dying eyes and lips, memory, perhaps, of when we were not the center of the universe, the locus of its consciousness, not master, owner, we could yet set down the axe. Václav Nijinsky dances the war in St. Moritz in front of the aristocrats. He dances frightening things. Finished, he declares, the little horse is tired. Nietzsche, weeping in the Piazza in Turin, weeps for the beaten horse, the beaten self. Sing me a new song. If I could remember where the bones were buried, I would dig them up. The wings of scapulas, the skulls of air, the golden saddlecloths, reconstruct the horses, the black horse and the white horse and the horse of fire. I'm going to read just a few poems from the new collection, Bone House. This book was written largely during lockdown, where I found it very difficult to write. So lots of the poems are quite fragmentary in it. And there are 4 poems all called Bone House in the book. And they came in my head to kind of represent the little kind of bony processes that the rest of the book hung upon. It's a book about mothers and daughters. So this is the first of the Bone House poems. Bone House. Skin a cat more ways than that. Rat-a-tat-tat, open the door and see who's there, I dare you. Father becomes dust. Father who carried fire, heat to the hearth. Mother gets no rest, parading through the night, eternal like the moon. Of all the impossible things, the worst is her sadness. Haunted because not humbled. Sit beneath the weight of days until you become stone, fossil. What was this? Did this once live? It was not their lives that mattered, it was their lives that mattered. It's little things, like the electric candle screwed onto the piano. Here's the moon again in the aftermath, with the rain falling and only a small stone in my hand. All that fear and hope and pleading, all that needing to be saved. A son's a son till he gets a wife, a daughter's a daughter, all of her life. Under the moon, my mother. Mother was the weather. Sun and cloud, storm and blizzard, drought and flood, snow and ice. Our hearts became barometers, sensitive to every change in pressure, isobars widening or coming together, Mercury rising or falling. In the movie of her life, my young mother walks across a beach, the tide is out. I'm in the pram she pushes over the wet sand. The man walking beside her says he'd bring me up as his own if she'd come back to him. She remembers freedom, Armagh dance halls, her fingers playing tunes on the button accordion, arms around him on the back of his motorbike, before her father came to bring her home where she belonged. She drives me home to where her husband waits, my father, and we all live in the bed she's made for us. A sudden shaft of light. My demented mother, who doesn't know me anymore, looks up as I come into the room. "Ah, there's my wee darling Moyra," she says, such love in her voice that everything falls away but love. Slate is clean, and I, newborn again and perfect, know myself beloved daughter before the darkness closes in again. I'll just read a couple more if I have time, yeah. I think mothers, there's lots of mothers in this book. There's Mary, there's Hecuba, there's lots of mothers, and I think, you know, what mothers have in common is they fear for their children. And I was driving along in the car one day and I heard an interview with Janice Winehouse, Amy's mother, and this little poem came out of that. It's called Daughters Who Dance with Death. And Janice Winehouse in this interview said, "The relentless cycle of thinking you would lose her and then not losing her. Each time I saw her, I thought it would be the last." And after years of it, it takes little to pitch you into the panic that it has happened, and how will you bear it when finally you hear, and if it's not this time, it may be the next, round and round you dance with it. And this is a poem after a Rembrandt painting, the Adoration of the Shepherds with a Lamp. Mary's face is an exhausted moon, shadows dark under her eyes. And it is with reluctance that she parts her cloak to reveal the infant sleeping oblivious in her lap. In Amsterdam, the artist inks a new plate, The Descent from the Cross, the dark night over Golgotha. And I'll just finish with one poem. Since during the writing of this book, I became a grandmother for the first time. I have a little granddaughter called Daisy, who's now 3. And I suppose in the writing of this book, there's all that kind of circular stuff. You know, I'm my mother, I'm a daughter, I have 2 daughters, and I have a granddaughter. So there's all that kind of you know, stuff going on in behind the book, I suppose. So this poem that I'll finish off with is was written after a holiday we had together in Iceland, and it's called First Glimpse of Orcas in Flaxaflow Bay. We've stood on deck for hours until we're nearly frozen, nearly given up. Our small family, husband, wife, our 2 grown girls, and our granddaughter swimming in her own warm, amniotic ocean. Then a shout goes out. My body begins to tremble. In the very crest, the blessing of their movement upwards, in the curve of their black bodies hung for one moment against the white ice space between sea and sky, I am lifted on their shining backs into a fierce, new longing.
Thank you so much, Moyra. That was gorgeous. I might invite you back up as well as Marcus for a brief Q&A if you'd like to. And Joelle, if you're still with us, I'd like to invite you back also.
Take this mic away. Oh, right. Yes.
There's an order to this.
No, that's great. Yeah.
Michelle is my
Michelle.
own name. Sorry, I
Brilliant.
forgot to introduce myself.
What's your surname?
Delay.
Delaney.
Delay.
Delaney.
Yeah. I don't have one actually.
Can you
Pass
pass
it around. Okay. So thanks so much again for your readings. Each of them were very different, very special. While I was listening to them, I thought about something that was said earlier by Mary Noonan during the Port Cities reading. And she said, as poets, we're always asking questions. So I suppose my first question to all of you would be, do you think that your own work or process of writing is an inquisitive one? And if so, what kind of questions do you think you're asking? Maybe Marcus, like throw to you first.
I suppose I get very confused about stuff, so it's a way of trying to unconfuse, maybe. Maybe it confuses other people if they read it, but so maybe it's a way of clarifying. Like, it's kind of fiction, like you're setting in stone you need in various versions of what it is, but it's trying to make sense, maybe. So I don't know, is it questioning its sense, maybe? Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you can hold on to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think a lot of it is trying to make sense and trying to kind of understand things for yourself, really, rather than for anything else. But also, I think just becoming curious about things and going and looking at them and finding out more about them. I find that kind of feeds into my work as well. But behind it all, I think, is that kind of that desire to make sense of things that make no sense whatsoever sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. Joelle, I don't know if you have.
Yes, I mean, I think all poetry is a question, isn't it? That's sort of within its nature. And certainly, I think when I first started writing, I was very definite. You know, when you're young, you have all the answers, you know, so literally everything you write is an answer rather than a question, which means that you don't really develop your ideas very, very far. And I think one of the skills of being a poet or being an author of any kind is to keep the questions open and to keep balancing above them, you know, so to not ever know the answer, I think is really quite important to my work anyway, in my process.
Thanks very much. So my next question, I suppose all of you have had works that sort of moved laterally into another discipline in some way or another. And I was wondering if your poetry could marry another art form at all, to which one do you think would be best suited or best expressed? Maybe Moyra, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, well, I love visual art, but I can't paint. So I found that working with visual artists, I really enjoy doing that, collaborating with other people in other art forms. I find that brings something to my work, and that in the end, it's kind of more than the sum of its parts when you're working with someone. So I find that that's what I like to do, work with other people. I love collaborating.
Yeah, like, I was thinking of the visual thing, but you robbed that off me, so I'll have to think something else. I suppose what came into my mind, because I'm working with sound at the moment in radio, you know, is I'm just taking it off the top of my head now, is to just, like, instead of words, it's all sound, as in not recognizable sound, but that the sounds of things are used to suggest the feeling of sentences or of a story or whatever. So you'd have to imagine it, you know, if that makes sense. Yeah, that just came into my head now. I must give that a go. Yeah.
Brilliant, thanks. And Joelle, same to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm really that sure where one form begins and the other ends. You know, there's always been like a real flow between different forms, different media. But I guess if it had to marry, if my work had to marry another one, it would be theatre probably, because it's kind of, it interacts with that anyway. There is a sense of theatre, I think, in the poetry, sense of poetry in the theatre, and there's some strange sort of cross-pollination going on. Yeah.
Would you ever see your work being brought to the theatre?
Oh yeah, so Conto's been made into a stage play, and we did like a year ago, last November, we did a scratch version, about 40 minutes of it. We cast the four butchers. I get to play Jack Catch, who's the older one. Cheers. We've cast the four butchers and we've set it inside a huge snow globe, and we're talking to theatres at the moment. So hopefully this summer it should be touring, theoretically.
Thanks so much. I think it was just the two questions we had time for tonight, so I just want to thank you all again, and especially Joelle for staying up till all hours for us. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, we're closing it up. So I have been asked to remind you all about the book desk is closing now tonight. So it's your last chance to purchase books, and if you have books on sale there, it would be a good time to collect them and to collect your money as well from any that were sold. And you've been a lovely audience, and we are really happy to offer you some refreshments now tonight down in the hayloft above the Long Valley. So we'd be delighted if you could join us there. And that's right, isn't it? Yeah. And so that's happening now, and sure, an opportunity to get a drink and have a chat as well. And I just want to thank Conghail and all the volunteers, all the sponsors. And tomorrow's going to be one of the most exciting Sundays we've had in a while. So in the morning, we're going to have all of the shortlisted films from the International Poetry Competition are going to be playing, and the winner will be announced. So that's going to be two 15-minute sets, 30 films in total, starting at 11:30 a.m. And then at 3 p.m, the highly anticipated All-Ireland Poetry Slam final is going to be happening in this room.
Wow.
So, yeah. Very excited, very, very excited about that. So please join us for that. That event is the only ticketed event of this whole festival, so you can find your tickets there, I'm sure, on the door or on Eventbrite. So once again, just thank our audience, thanks for coming, and to our guests tonight, Mac Conghail, Joelle Taylor and Moyra Donaldson.